Hi everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Special guest in the house, Anna Paquin. Got your new show. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So Thursday, February 21st, the big day. Flack is coming to Pop TV.
It is.
So you've done a lot in your career, but why was this the right project at this time?
Well, I have a company called Chasm Films, and we have been looking for and developing material for a bunch of years now. This came to us about 5 years ago. It is extraordinarily dark and funny and twisted and smart, and happens to have a really amazing female-led cast and female ensemble. And it was just a character I loved from the get-go, and a scripts I just connected with immediately. And it was a very easy yes. So it was just, then getting it from yes, we want to do this to actually having it, shot, ready, and about to air has been a bit of a journey, but most projects are.
Well, I was going to say 5 years from the first
point.
So
we were developing it for a while, and then it kind of went cold for a minute, and then everyone kind of got busy and did other things for a few years. And then one of my producing partners and I were sort of going through a list of ones that we weren't ready to really let go of, and
that was one of them.
And this was had been top of our list for forever. And it really does just come down to the fact that the writing's just really, really good and really smart and really well constructed, and good material is shockingly hard to come by. Yeah. So yeah, it's just been, and then that was about, sort of fall, I guess, of last year. And then we were sort of a few months later in prep, and then suddenly shooting, and now we're about to go on the air in like 48 hours.
That's awesome.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you're somebody that actually focuses on the work and the script and the content.
Yes.
And listen, let's be real. There's other people in your business that are just looking for a payday.
But also for whom that's not, maybe that's not of interest to them.
Sure.
And that's also totally fine,
Right.
But, the work I've always done has always been more based on sort of, well, who am I going to get to work with, and what's the quality of the writing and the quality of the people that
Who's
I'm
the
going
character playing?
Yeah, of the people and the characters, and that's just sort of where my interest has always lied. So, yeah. That's
awesome. And it seems like Robin is a really fascinating character. Also like a really good time to have a character like this in 2019.
Yeah, it's funny when you've been sitting on scripts for a bunch of years and it turns out they're still relevant 5 years later, because a lot of the issues that we sort of, are dealing with and talking about are, if not more relevant now. There's,
no doubt, yeah.
As far as sort of, the nature of the news cycle and fake news and Me Too and a bunch of stuff that sort of
controlling the message as a publicist.
Exactly. And also just interesting to see it from the point of view of the people who are in charge of fixing the messes.
Right. Because we're always focusing on the people like you in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you finally get to give these people some love, and you know it from your team, and other people say it too. Those people are so important. So how has your publicity team helped you throughout your career? Because you've been at it for a long, long time.
Well, I've had the same main person since I was like 13 years old.
Yeah, I read that. That's awesome.
So,
it's amazing.
And so she's family at this point. But it was more when I was younger about sort of protecting me from not from, the press per se, but just sort of protecting me as a small child and a person.
Right, you're not even a teenager when you're starting out.
No, and I was extraordinarily shy and sort of was not that kid that if you just sort of dropped into an adult situation would just sort of be chatting away.
No, you're kind of in the corner.
I'd sort of be in the corner watching and be like, you have to be sort of pushed, which is weird because I think people sort of assume that actors are all extroverts, and a lot of us are incredibly shy because there's something very intimate about having a camera and performing in that way, or even on stage where you can't see the audience. It's just you and the people you're working with, So it gives us this false impression that we're going to all be really confident in real life. So
everybody else has the same problems, same stuff going on.
Yeah, so for the most part, my publicist spent a lot of time just sort of sheltering me and making sure that if I did do stuff that it was, the right things, and that it wasn't too much and it wasn't going to sort of damage me or frighten me.
Right. And you mentioned that time as a young child, and you've talked so much about the Oscar, but like life after the Oscar, like your publicist is protecting you from stuff, you're still growing up. Like what are the challenges you're dealing with at that point?
Well, I mean, adolescence is challenging regardless of whether you do it on camera or not.
Yeah.
I mean, middle school and high school
middle
girls.
Middle school girl, yeah.
I mean, God,
It doesn't matter if you have an Oscar or
not. Exactly. I mean, actually,
after you.
It's more like, having one made me more of a target.
Right.
It's like it's that time where you just want to blend in and not
Absolutely.
be noticed by anybody.
But you probably couldn't regardless, even if you wanted to at that point.
I mean, that wasn't really possible. Yeah. I mean, look, it's great now. But,
absolutely. Yeah. Listen, it's a life changer. But at 12 and 13, to be an Oscar winner.
It wasn't something I was like as psyched about then as I am now.
And were you here in the States after that, or
No,
in New Zealand?
I lived in New Zealand until I was 16.
Okay, so after you win, you're back in New Zealand.
For quite a few years, yeah,
gotcha.
and working and traveling for work and coming back and forth.
Gotcha.
And then finally, I was working more and more and more, and it just didn't make sense to continue living in the country 14 hours away.
I can't imagine going back and forth for work from New Zealand to California.
It's quite a commute.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
But that was home for you.
Exactly.
And
that was important to,
definitely
maintain that and keep that part of my life, and
I'm
not
sure
just sort of immediately throw me into
have some normalcy after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So growing up in New Zealand, before winning the award, before becoming an actress, take me back to just being the shy kid and starting to figure it out.
I mean, honestly, I don't really, I was just a normal kid. I did normal kid stuff. There wasn't really anything particularly noteworthy. I went to school.
Living.
I just went to school and did various after-school activities. And
then you happened to see this newspaper ad one day.
Yeah, and happened to go, and then happened to get the part, and then everything else sort of snowballed after that.
But was there ever an interest in acting, entertainment, anything
No,
like that?
I didn't.
So why even follow that newspaper ad,
Because a bunch of kids were going.
So you just wanted to be cool?
Yeah.
That's
or just,
amazing.
Do the thing that other people are doing.
Just following the crowd.
Following the crowd.
Well, that's really interesting. So as your career progressed, did you find yourself continuing to follow the crowd, or did you start doing your own thing? When did that change?
Well, that was the first and last time, I think.
That doesn't really seem like your personality. That's why I was surprised. At that point,
but also it's that thing of something being so foreign.
Right.
That it's like, well, I don't really know what that is, but that sounds cool.
And you never could have imagined what it would become.
Absolutely not. We didn't watch a lot of TV in our household growing up, or movies, so I really didn't have any idea of this whole world. Yeah. 27 years later.
No, it's really fascinating. And so, you think about a lot of people who have been actors and stars as children, and, you're somebody that continues to do it. So how do you remain consistent throughout all these years?
God, I have no idea. I mean, I work incredibly hard. I've been really lucky. Stayed out of trouble.
No, it's a big part of it. Yeah, you have a good reputation in the industry.
Well, I finished school. I went to college and finished college, but I had priorities that existed outside of just the work.
Right.
And it was important to me to maintain that aspect of my life too.
Absolutely.
And important to my family. That wasn't really a negotiable. So, I'm lucky.
Well, it's so different because you just kind of fell into it, whereas people today at 11 grow up wanting to be influencers or wanting to be celebrities and calculating every move to do it. So, it must be fascinating for you to watch that.
That's a weird thing to me. I'm like, people were like, that want to be famous. It's like, well, for doing what? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, and how are you going to work at it?
I guess that's not really a thing anymore that you have to, but I guess I'm just old-fashioned.
I like the old-fashioned approach.
Well, it works for me.
It works for you, exactly. So, taking a look at your career, you did Almost Famous, which became a big movie. What do you remember about that experience?
I mean, it was so much fun. Cameron Crowe is such a gifted filmmaker, and we basically, just hung out like rock groupies for months and months, and went to these they've staged these huge live concerts, and it was kind of as much fun as it, in real life as it looked on screen. I mean, it was awesome.
That's cool. And how long was the production for that?
I think we shot for about 5 months. There was a section in the middle where they shot with the little kid when he was still in grade school before he grows up into Patrick Fugit's character. But yeah, it was a really great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we were talking off camera just about the differences in shooting schedules today and networks and everything.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest differences in the industry today in terms of financing, in terms of greenlighting projects? What even 5 years ago, what feels different?
Well, I think there's a lot more platforms for entertainment now. There's, with smaller, newer networks like Pop that has Flack, and the various streaming platforms. I think there's, just a lot more access and differently accessed entertainment, which does just make it a bit easier to get certain things across the the start line, because you're not all competing for the 1 or 2 spots from some big giant company or a big studio, and a lot of times the smaller guys are willing to take risks on stuff that's not necessarily 100% a sure thing,
right.
but is usually creatively much more satisfying. Which is, you know, kind of, again, where we lucked into things with Flack and Pop and UK TV in the US, in
right.
the UK, which was our co-producing.
I gotcha. And also having your production company
yes.
helps out with that. And
absolutely.
I feel like there's not a ton of women that have that going on in the industry. Definitely more than there once were, but
yeah, I think I'm certainly not, you know, the only one who's figured
right.
out that if you want to do interesting material that you really love, you go find it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, there's wonderful stuff out there, but you know, it's easier to go out and make it happen
yes.
than to sit around and wait for it to happen.
And
I'm just not really a sit around and wait.
You don't want to wait for that phone call.
No.
Yeah, it's funny when people come in here, you know, you have those peaks and valleys in your career. So people are, I'm sure after the Oscar, people are hitting you up for stuff. You know, at other points in your career,
absolutely. You know, you go through being really popular for
right.
a while,
and then it's radio silence.
And then, you know, you go back to being a bit more below the radar, which personally I'm always a little bit excited when I'm like, it's like, oh, cool, I'm not cool right now. Which is usually when I'm working, is like when you're just shooting things back to back right. and like nothing's come out for a minute or two.
Exactly. And then it kind of all comes out
and then
at
everything
once.
comes out at once, so it's like, oh, okay, the other bit of my job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of cool things in the past. What have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
I mean, oh God, that's so hard. I did a lot of theater back, like when I first moved to New York years and years ago, which I absolutely love and haven't done recently. And
that's a huge thing to do.
I'm sort of dying to get back on stage at some point.
So how long has it been since you've been on the stage?
I mean, before True Blood.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that was 10 years ago. But you know, TV schedules and theater schedules, not so much.
Match up, yeah.
And now I'm sort of in LA now, and there is some theater there, but not, you know,
not the same. Yeah.
not like it is here. God, there's been so many amazing things that I've gotten to be part of. I did this film with. Do you know who Kenny Lonergan is? Mm-hmm. This film Margaret that was in between You Can Count on Me and. Thingy by the Sea, whatever the Casey Affleck one was that he did.
Oh, Manchester by the Sea.
Manchester by the Sea. So he did a movie in between those that almost nobody's seen, but was one of the most creatively rewarding experiences of my entire life.
See, those are the best kind of movies that nobody's ever seen, but then you happen to stumble upon it.
It was one of those ones that just had like a very long and strange story through post-production, which if you ever are really deeply bored, and Google it, it's kind of interesting.
I'll have to check that out. I'll take your word for it.
But he's such a talented, amazing writer, and one of my favorite people to work with. And I'd done a play of his in London, sort of around the time that he was writing that script, and then, somehow ended up with that part.
Yeah.
And that was all shot here. That was when I was like 23, I think. That was a really amazing experience. I got to go play with Scorsese and all his big boys on The Irishman last year, which was
that's right.
which was pretty insane.
That must have been incredible.
Yeah, pretty much.
We had James Badge Dale in here, and he was talking about The Departed, and he was just talking about these little moments with Scorsese coming over to him, and just saying like he was describing something, but using a different tact to get that across. So did you have something similar to that?
Well, I mean, he is incredibly personable and friendly with absolutely everybody, and does make a point of coming and speaking to each person individually. And if you're just paying attention, you can see that he sort of picks what and how to approach depending on who it is and what they might need. And I think a lot of it with him is knowing that people are going to be a bit intimidated by him.
Sure, yeah.
And so kind of getting everyone to like kind of calm down.
That's a big part of it.
But also knowing that, but being kind about it and not making anyone feel silly for being a bit like, oh wow, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, because I'm sure for you as an actress, you could overact it, you can be intimidated by the moment, kind of curl in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, people, I think the directors that tend to, for me, get like, I know my best work is when I feel safe and relaxed.
Right.
So, I'm sure that there's been amazing performances done while someone was screaming at you, but I'm not sure that I'm that person.
I don't know if it's the best way either.
Well,
it's kind of like parenting, when you're yelling at your kid.
Oh yeah, it doesn't really get you anywhere.
Register.
Yeah, it doesn't really get you anywhere fast.
So, do you have an interest in the directing?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what. I mean, I had a book that I was going to adapt into a screenplay and direct, and then I had children, and that kind of sidetracked things for a second. Also having, sort of having done a lot more producing on independent films, and the last one was something that my husband directed, and just sort of living in the trenches of indie filmmaking for quite a long time now, and living through the director version of that with my husband. It's, I mean, it's a long path. So you want to be really, really sure that that is the piece of material that you are dying to spend the next 3 or 4 years of your life.
It's going to be a grind.
You know, pushing up the hill kind of
Right.
thing. So, yeah, I haven't quite figured out what that's going to be, but I'm excited to continue to expand my, you know, the departments that I play in.
Yeah, absolutely, because now you've done all these different things and you have the freedom to kind of pick and choose, as opposed to like, I'm a struggling actress trying to make it.
Also, if I find a piece of material that I want to direct, you know, it's mine, and I get it, and it's mine, you know, we can get it. Our company can get things financed. It's, you know, it's not easy all the time, depending on what you choose.
Yeah, I mean, look at Flack. It's a 5-year process, but it's something that you want to do, character you want to play.
Exactly. Then you keep pushing, and that's really exciting.
Definitely. So when people check out Flack, what do you want them to walk away thinking? You know, what do you want them to feel when they watch Robin going through her crazy life?
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of laughs. There's a lot of very dark, very unapologetically inappropriate humor. Kind of offends everybody equally, and doesn't really pull any of its punches. But also, I think it's, you know, a really interesting sort of look at, you know, what is the nature of truth and morality, and where does your line lie, and what kinds of decisions and things in your life make you the person that you are, that will make, in her case, sometimes some very questionable choices. And it does sort of dig into under the surface of that a bit, as far as going into, you know, her backstory and what her life was really like, you know, previously and growing up. And it's quite fascinating on that level, but it's also really fun.
It should be.
It's funny, deep, dark, and fun.
Yeah, and it's an escape from your reality of what's going on.
You know?
Absolutely.
And plus the clients are always just like kind of ridiculous and getting into really, really delicious kinds of trouble.
And I'm sure that's cool for you to spin the table on that one.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, Anna, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Flack, Pop TV, Thursday, February 21st. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.